everyone, and welcome to Women of Grace Live. I am Johnnette Williams, so very pleased to be with you today. Love spending this time with you Monday through Friday as we discuss issues of importance to your life and your faith. I love hearing from you. I love when you call in with your questions, with your comments, with your insights, your inspiration, your words of encouragement. To tune in and call in, you can use this number, 833-288-EWTN. That's 833-288-3986 is the way that you can join us right here on Women of Grace Live, where we love having holy conversation with you. In addition to that, we're available for you at EWTN Radio's YouTube channel. Simply go out there and use the chat feature that is available for you there. Put in your question or comment. Let us know who you are. Let us know where you're calling from. And we will very eagerly retrieve that question and get it up on the board. You can also text us. Text the letters EWTN to 58177. That's EWTN to 58177. Wait for our response. Put in your question or comment. Tell us where you are, how you're listening. And we certainly, who you are, we want to know that too. And do know that message and data rates may apply if you choose that option. But all of those ways are available to you, and I'm so eager to hear from you. You can also send questions to us, and we will get to those when we dip into the mailbag there. And to get a question to me via email, simply send it to womenofgrace@EWTN.com. That's Women of Grace, all one word, right? Women of Grace, plural on the women, at EWTN.com. We will be very, very eager to receive your questions that way too. So we are abundantly available to you. Make use of the opportunity. I'm looking forward to talking with you today. 833-288-3986. That's 833-288-EWTN. That is the number to use toll free for you right here in North America. If you're outside of North America, we've got your number. That number begins with the country code 1-205-271-2985. Country code 1-205-271-2985. Well, I am eager to tell you about some of the good things happening at Women of Grace. I love to give you these updates. I love to invite you, too, to go out to our website where you can see them for yourself and make yourself available to all of the wonderful resources that are there for you. Just go to womenofgrace.com, and you will see right on the left-hand side of our homepage, just a snapshot of our upcoming events, more upcoming events behind the events tab there. But, we've got some upcoming events, shorthand for you here. December 6th, so eager about this. I'll tell you what, we have our Young Women of Grace Advent online event. Say, yes, Lord. Prepare for Advent with our Blessed Mother. It's going to be a beautiful time for our young women. We like girls anywhere between ages 8 and high school to attend these. We invite mom to attend with daughter. That's fine with us. We don't mind whatsoever. We don't even mind if you're a grandma and you just want to check it out, and see what's going on with it. Or if you're a mom and you want to check it out and see what's going on with it so that you can have your daughter join us for an upcoming one. We want to do this as often as we possibly can without having it be, overdone, because we want our young women to understand who they are as the daughters of the Most High God, to understand the magnificence of the reality of their feminine genius. We want them to understand how precious they are in the eyes of God. We want them to understand that they have dignity and they have value. Today in our culture, we certainly have a skewed sense of what value is. We have a skewed sense of what dignity is. We want our daughters to be firmly rooted into the proper notion of who they've been called to be as daughters of the Most High God and the very beautiful gifts with which He has endowed them. And so we have the opportunity for young women to join a Young Women of Grace study. We have lots of facilitators out there that are leading these. We have them available in varieties of geographic areas. If it's not going on in your area, I do want you to know that we would be delighted to talk with you about becoming a facilitator for our Young Women of Grace. Just give us a call at the ministry. We will be sure to give you the information that you need. We've got a toll-free number for you. It's 800-558-5452. That's 800-558 LHLA. We're looking for women who have a heart for young women and want to share with them the important ideals that God would have them know and those realities about themselves that will lead them to that ideal. So we would be delighted to discuss that with you. I know that we've got it going on in numbers of different places with great success. We've got a study guide that accompanies this. We've got resources for those who lead, beautiful handouts that and activities that they can print out for the girls. Just beautiful stuff. I have to tell you, it's a top-notch program for young women. So you can check that out at our website. But in addition to that, why not see what Young Women of Grace is like by joining us Friday, December the 6th from 7:30 p.m. Eastern to 9 p.m. Eastern for our Young Women of Grace Advent online event. It's a fun evening for the girls. We've got activities that they do right there online. Mary Dillenbach, one of our regional coordinators who has led Young Women of Grace, is going to be leading this. It's going to be a beautiful, beautiful opportunity for all of your daughters. They'll also meet a saint. This saint for this particular Advent retreat or online event is St. Francis Cabrini. They'll learn a word to know. You know, I was an English teacher. I love vocabulary. So they'll learn a Catholic word to know. They'll learn what the Catechism has to say about a number of different things, and they will pray a decade of the Rosary together. So all of that info out there for you at our website. You can sign up and join us right there online. There's a little bio there about Mary Dillenbach. She was one of the developers for our Young Women of Grace program, so she's going to do a spectacular job. So I'm inviting you to check that out. I'm also inviting you to check out our Benedicta Institute for Women. Our week-long winter immersive is going to be held at Our Lady of Florida Spiritual Center beginning February the 3rd, and it's going to run through, let me just see when does this end. It starts February the 3rd. It's usually, a few days. It's going to end February the 9th. It starts at 3 p.m. on Monday, February 3rd, ends Sunday, February 9th at 12 noon. There will be a Mass, and it will close out right then. It's going to be lovely. This particular immersive is under our theme of Mariology and the Feminine Genius, and we're going to be studying a beautiful book by Carol Hauslander called The Reed of God, Our Lady in Scripture and Devotion, as well as Dr. Edward Sree's book, Rethinking Mary in the New Testament, Brant Petrie's book, Jesus and the Jewish Roots of Mary, Unveiling the Mother of the Messiah, and True Devotion to Mary by Louis de Montfort. It's going to be a beautiful time, so ladies, check it out. If you're looking to get a certification in Catholic Women's Leadership, this course, of course, will apply to that, or just take it for spiritual enrichment. Well, you hear that music? We're going to a break. 833-288-EWTN. That's 833-288-3986. Hey, listen, if you have any questions whatsoever about what I've just mentioned, give us a call. I'll answer them for you. Call us with your questions and comments on any topic. 833-288-EWTN. Coming right back. Stay with us.
This is Life Issues with Brad Mattis, president of Life Issues Institute.
Vice President Kamala Harris campaigned exclusively on unrestrained abortion and her hatred of Donald Trump. Abortion was her number one theme. She even paraded 10 abortionists on stage at one of her rallies. Yet, an analysis of the election shows that Harris underperformed with women voters. A majority supported Trump. Radical pro-abortion amendments failed in Florida, Nebraska, and South Dakota. This was the second time it failed in South Dakota since the Dobbs decision. And get this, South Dakota has a law that protects unborn babies from the moment of fertilization with no exceptions. What does this tell you about the abortion issue? It's a winning issue. Politicians who stand for life and expose their opposition's radical stand of abortion until birth win.
Follow us on social media at Life Issues Institute.
Now you can earn a certification in Catholic women's leadership through the Women of Grace Benedicta Institute for Women, which seeks to educate, develop, and train Catholic women to be leaders and mentors of the day by way of the feminine genius and their gift of spiritual maternity. Areas of study fall under 4 main themes: God and the human person, Mariology and the feminine genius, Carmelite spirituality, and Catholic women's leadership. Women in the certification program will be formed and shaped according to the heart and mind of Holy Mother Church in the fullness of the feminine genius, the Blessed Virgin Mary. Through spiritual and leadership formation, women will be imbued with the Marian character, confidence, and skill to bring Jesus Christ to the world and the world to Jesus Christ. If this interests you, learn more at benedictainstitute.com or call 800-558-5452.
Join in on the conversation. The Women of Grace phone lines are open. 1-833-288-EWTN, 1-833-288-3986.
Well, welcome back, everybody. You're listening to Women of Grace Live. I'm Johnnette Williams. So very happy to be with you today. Oh, my goodness. Our phone lines are lighting up, and I'll tell you, that just makes me gleeful. I get gleeful when the phone lines light up. So I'm inviting you to call, too, 833-288-EWTN. That's 833-288-3986. It's a toll-free number for you if you're here in North America. Now, I want you to let Matt Gubensky know if you're a first-time caller when you come in, because I've got my little bell here, which you know I love to ring to welcome you for your debut right here on Women of Grace Live. In addition to that, I will ring that bell for you if you are a first-time submitter. And I invite you to submit your question to us, if you don't want to call in, through the chat feature at EWTN Radio's YouTube channel. Just go out there, use that chat feature, tell us who you are, where you're calling from, let us know if you're actually listening via YouTube, because sometimes people aren't, but they just go out there and put the question in there. They're listening some other means. That being said, if you're a first-time submitter, I'll ring my bell for you too. I sure will. So use those options. You can also text us. Text the letters EWTN to 58177. Wait for our response. Put in your question or comment. Put in your name, where you are, how you're listening, and do know that data and message rates may apply for you there. So looking forward to hearing from you today. We're going to go right to the phone lines because I'm so excited about it. Joe is there. Joe is in Minnesota, listening to us via Real Presence Radio. Hey, Joe, how are you?
Oh, not too bad. I'm doing pretty good.
Good. I'm glad to hear it. I'm doing really well, thank you.
Yeah, I have a comment. I was, every once in a while, my faith it kind of dwindles a little bit, and I go up and down a little bit. But I got to be thinking, who, if God didn't create the Ten Commandments, who could create that? What human could think up those laws because they're so perfect and they cover everything? And who could make that up? And then I got to be thinking, well, you look at the Bible. Now, was there a conspiracy theory 2,000 years ago, or even before that, for the First Testament, that hundreds of people got together and they thought, well, we're going to make up a fairy tale, and we're gonna put it down in a book, and it's all going to be false, but we're going to do this. And I got to be thinking, well, that's ludicrous, because who could make up a story of the Bible and it was not true? I think it's just, and when I think of that, I just come right back to my where I should be, and that is proof enough for anyone, because no one could make up a story about a superhuman being that was bringing people back from the dead and curing people, and it was just a big lie. I think that is just, if people just look at that, that tells you all you need to know. Because and then it brings me right back to where I should be, and I just wanted to share my thoughts with everybody. And just think about that. Who could make that up? And who could come up with a conspiracy theory to gather hundreds of people, and they'd all be writing their little things down, and they'd all get it together and collect it, and it was a lie? Well, that's ludicrous. I just wanted to share that now.
Well, I certainly do appreciate it, Joe. And, it is true that, early civilizations, early cultures had mythologies. And there's always been a certain branch, if you will, of academia that has said, well, the Bible is just one of these many, mythological tales. But the interesting thing about those mythological tales, while the tales still remain, nobody believes that those tales are true. And there's an author out there, and if you think that that's really amazing, I'm going to refer you to this author. Now, I don't know if he's ever converted to Catholicism. I tend to think that he's more agnostic than anything, which also lends credibility to what it is that you're saying. And I'll tell you, it was Mike Aquilina that told me about him many, many years ago. And this fellow's name is Rodney, Rodney, Rodney Stark, Stark. He's written a number of different books, but the one that I want to cite for you, because you're interested in this topic, is called The Rise of The Rise of Christianity. Now, he's a sociologist, and what he maintains, and this is thrilling. He says what he maintains in this book is that all of those early mythologies were actually pointing toward sacred scripture. We're actually pointing toward the coming of Jesus Christ. And he, in careful detail, kind of outlines this, right? He says, and I'll just read you a little summation of this particular book that he's written, The Rise of Christianity, a Sociologist Reconsiders. He says, the idea that Christianity started as a clandestine movement among the poor is a widely accepted notion. Yet it is one of many myths that must be discarded if we are to understand just how a tiny messianic movement on the edge of the Roman Empire became the dominant faith of Western civilization. He says, in a fast-paced, highly readable book that addresses beliefs as well as historical facts, Rodney Stark brings a sociologist's perspective to bear on the puzzle behind the success of early Christianity. He comes equipped not only with the logic and methods of social science, but also with insights gathered firsthand into why people convert and how new religious groups recruit members. So it's a fascinating read. And I think that, obviously the Old Testament is the foreshadowing of the New Testament. Scott Hahn, a great theologian, says that, we have to read the Old Testament in light of the New, and we have to read the New Testament in light of the Old. So the two are meant to come together. And basically, Rodney Stark is making the case for the fact that, this rise of Christianity that we see in the New Testament, it could never have been a conspiracy theory, could never have been a myth, that this was factual. Now, he's passed on to his eternal reward at this point in time. But these are contemporary books, meaning that they were written, in the latter part of the last century. I'm not exactly sure what year that book was written. But he's, it's just really fascinating. So you might be interested in that, since you seem to have an interest with regard to no human could have come up with this, and no human could have made what's happened with Christianity happen. That has got to be God driven the whole way through. So, So, Joe, thank you. Very exciting comment that you made, and one obviously that, just got my little motor running there to be able to share a little bit more deeply about what your very, very good observation, and may I say, not only observation, but logical deduction understands. So I'm very, very happy that you called in. Thank you very much. I think that the book was published in 1996. So it's not all that old. Still very, very relevant. Thanks, Joe.
And maybe I'll call back again sometime.
Hey, listen, you're always welcome. I would enjoy hearing from you again. I like the way you're thinking.
Thank you.
You're welcome. God bless you now. Bye-bye. It's amazing to me how people just they want to refute the truth. So we ask ourselves, well, why do people want to refute the truth? Well, because if you admit to the truth, then there is naturally an obligation, a duty, a responsibility to live that truth. And people don't want to live the truth. You know, they want to create their own mythology. They want to make themselves the hero or heroine of their own tale, because this doesn't require anything from them except what it is that they want to do. And that's the soup of the day and time in which we're living. That's the soup of it. But you and I, we've been called to make a difference. We've been called to be that beacon of light that shines out in the darkness of our day and time and leads people to the one who is the way, the truth, and the life. Jim from Dayton, Ohio is with us. We're going to go to Jim. We would love to hear from you here, 833-288-EWTN. That's 833-288-3986. Don't be shy. Give it a try. Don't delay. Call right away. We want to hear from you today. So Jim is there in Dayton, Ohio, listening to us via YouTube. And let's just hear what he has to say. How you doing, Jim?
I'm hanging in there, Johnnette. It's been a while since I talked to you about a couple years ago. I'm retired. I worked in the lumber business in the Miami Valley area. My wife worked in the printing business for a number of years.
Yes.
So we're kind of taking it easy right now, but in the meantime, there is a lot of stress going on, especially with the Christmas holidays, getting everything set up, put the tree up and the decorations and all.
Yes.
When we got married in 1982, she loved being a Catholic, and I'm going to try to give you a little brief without going into any length of the matter.
Yes.
My oldest son was expelled from the local Catholic school because of his autism. And that made my wife very angry and heartbroken, and I can relate to how we both felt about that.
Sure.
He was diagnosed as high-functioning autistic.
Okay.
But on the brighter side, since he graduated from a public high school, he is working a good job in our locality. He makes good money. He drives his own car. So that's a good thing. But in the meantime, there's still drama. We have disagreements. I've been married to this woman for well over 41 years. I never had an extramarital affair, but sometimes we have some issues, especially I have Alzheimer's. I forget things. When I ask her to repeat it, and that kind of annoys her because I don't always listen the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty much what's going on with me right now. I always believed, according to what my mom said many years ago, she used to tell me, we're a family, we stick together, and I've kind of held on to that thing before she passed away a number of years ago.
Yes.
But I do help out several Catholic radio stations. I've done voiceover work for Radio Maria in Alexandria, Louisiana. I do also voiceover work for a station up in Landorf, Ohio, and they're pretty good people. So I do that. I'm part of the Cursillo movement, and I think, in case I forgot, I'm a member of the Knights of Columbus, and I'm blessed by that.
Yes.
But my wife refuses to come to Mass with me, with the exception of weddings and funerals.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like a loner, and that's why I get involved with the Knights of Columbus and these other extracurricular activities I do.
Yes.
So I'm just trying to inspire her to come back to the church, but she's just not giving in because that I had bad experience with my autistic son.
Yeah. Well, Jim, it's interesting that you would call today. You and I have chatted in the past. I'm familiar with your story. And I just received a notification today from a dear friend of mine who has been diagnosed very recently with Alzheimer's. And it's a very debilitating disease as it progresses, and you well know that. And I think that the hardest stage of it must be the stage where you are, Jim. I watched this happen to my mom as well, so I'm familiar with how this goes. And, I look back on my mother's situation, and I think my mother had to know that her mind was failing. She had to know that, but she sought to cover it, and she sought to remain active as long as she could. And it must be a very particular kind of cross when you know what the future holds. And of course, you love your wife, and it's sad when these moments are further compromised by the fact that there's tension in the family for any number of reasons. I do want to say this, if we were to tease this out a little bit, with regard to your son, I'm sorry that he had that experience of being expelled or perhaps asked to leave. Oftentimes, our Catholic schools are ill-equipped to be able to supply what is necessary for a child who has special needs. And of course, your son did, though he's very high functioning. Autism is autism, and I'm sure that there are aspects of it that could be better attended to if he was in an environment that provided suitable academic helps as well as programs for him. So the fact that he seems to have thrived in that move is wonderful, and he's driving his own car, and he seems to be rather self-sufficient, and that is a great blessing. I understand how protective a mother's love is. I understand this very, very well. And I know that what we want to do is to protect our child from any kind of negative experience that they could have, or from any kind of, upsetting circumstance that might come their way, especially a child like your son who has this special need, because oftentimes autistic individuals do not handle change very well. They struggle with change. And so your wife, with this beautiful gift of her maternal love for him, beatitude for him, and maternal protection, was suffering what maybe even your son was not quite tuned in to experience. But nonetheless, she was experiencing it for him. And she ached and she hurt. And I can understand also how it is that you want to lash out at the person or the institution that caused the pain. In some ways, that's almost just a natural human reaction because it's a self-preservative reaction. We're being hurt as a result of this, as well as the one who is the proximate individual that's being hurt. And we, lash out. Excuse me. What I'm sorry about is that she's held that resentment against the church, and I'm also sad that she's held that resentment against those individuals who may, or certainly I can't imagine that they were being vicious in this, who maybe were only striving to help, but perhaps there was misunderstanding there. If you hold, we'll continue to discuss this, and then we're going to go to Victoria, and we're inviting you to call us too, friends. 833-288-EWTN. That's 833-288-3986 is the way that you can join us here. We're happy to be with you live Monday through Friday at this same time on this same station. And I'm always inviting you to call us. If you're a first-timer, I want to know so I can ring my bell. Submit your question to EWTN Radio's YouTube channel using the chat feature. We'll put it up on the board and address it that way too. And if you're a first-timer, I'll ring my bell for you too. We're coming right back. Stay with us.
This is Cy Kellett. We're here to take your calls on apologetics and evangelization on Catholic Answers Live tonight, 6 Eastern on EWTN Radio.
Prayer is a variety of forms of communication. Sometimes we simply greet one another, hi, how are you? And we say small, short prayers similarly to God. Other times we engage people in deep conversations. Other times we engage our families in family reunions and big meals. Similarly with God, we engage Him in Eucharist and deep meditation as well.
An EWTN Real News Minute is next.
The year 452 A.D., harrowing news reaches Rome. An army of Huns has penetrated the empire's frontier This wave of fierce barbarians leave razed cities, destroy churches, and many dead in its wake. Rome is next. Now fearful, the Emperor Valentinian III and his army abandon the city to its fate. In the midst of chaos and collapse, Pope Leo the Great stands in the breach. The Pope, unarmed and unafraid, meets Attila. He pleads with him, saying, "You who defeated everyone, defeat yourself. With no other deed will you be more like the immortal God than if you have mercy on the defeated." Upon hearing these words, Attila is filled with the fear of God and decides to retreat. Before leaving, he turns to Pope Leo and says, "Whoever you may be, man or angel, give thanks to the God that you serve."
EWTN.
Hi, this is Cy Kellett. Later today on Catholic Answers Live, Tim Staples, Ask Me Anything. Catholic Answers Live, 6 p.m. Eastern on EWTN Radio. Now, back to Women of Grace with Johnnette Williams.
The Women of Grace phone lines are open. 1-833-288-EWTN. 1-833-288-3986.
Well, welcome back, everybody. You are listening to Women of Grace Live. I'm Johnnette Williams. I'm delighted to be with you today. Looking forward to talking with you. Please do give us a call, 833-288-EWTN. That's 833-288-3986. It's a toll-free number for you right here in North America. We're also available for you out there at EWTN Radio's YouTube channel. We invite you to use the chat feature there and put in your question or comment. We'll get it retrieved. Michael McCall doing that. Matthew Gabensky on the phones. If you're a first-timer either way, I want to know so I can ring my bell to welcome you. I love to ring that bell. We had James with us from Dayton, Ohio. He's not with us right now, but he was sharing with us about the difficulty and the struggle that he's having. He has Alzheimer's. He has a highly functioning young man, son, who is autistic. His wife has left the church because she became irritated with the Catholic school when they expelled her son. I don't know any circumstances there, and I'm not sure. You know, when I hear the word expelled, it has a negative connotation in my mind. But he might have been asked to leave. And I suggested to James that perhaps it was because they knew that they could not provide him with the help that he needed. But here his wife has held on to this resentment for all this time, and it causes him great suffering and great pain. So if you're still listening, what I would suggest that you do is to take this diagnosis of Alzheimer's, the inconvenience that it causes you, the sadness of heart that you experience when you repeat yourself a couple of different times and your wife grows a little aggravated. I would take all of that and I would make that an offering to the Lord, James. That's what I would do. I would offer it up to the Lord as a sacrificial offering, saying, Lord, I'm offering this to you for the reversion of my wife, that she will come back to the faith, that her heart, now stony, would be made a heart of flesh, and she would experience a deep and abiding love with you. Even in the notion, James, that you're going through these stages of Alzheimer's, and there may come a time when you can't do the voiceover work anymore, and there may come a time when your capacity to attend some of those Knights of Columbus meetings becomes more limited. That might occur, but in all of that, to the extent that you can remember, offer it up for the sake of your wife. And I can tell you that kind of prayer is very, very efficacious. It yields great, great results. In the meantime, know that I'm tucking you into my rosary today, and I will tuck your son in, and I will tuck your wife in too. Thank you for your call. We've got Victoria with us in San Antonio, Texas. This is, I think, the second San Antonio, Texas call today. Yay, San Antonio is going to win the prize. Victoria is a first-time caller. I am ringing my bell for Victoria. She is listening also via Guadalupe Radio Network. Good morning, Victoria.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for having me on today.
Oh, you're so very, very welcome. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Hopefully I can get both my questions answered. I only brought up one, but my first one is I'm currently an OCIA, and I will be baptized and receive the rest of my sacraments at the Easter Vigil. Now, what stumped me on Sunday was learning about purgatory.
Okay.
And, it just sat a little bit heavy on my heart. And from my understanding, if I receive all my sacraments and I do not commit any mortal sins, will I be able to skip purgatory, or are there ways to go without going to purgatory, if that makes sense?
It makes perfect sense, and the answer is yes and yes. It is possible not to have to suffer purgatory. It is possible to go straight to heaven. Now, to what extent that happens, I don't know, but we'll find out in the next life, right?
Yes.
But here's the thing, what is purgatory? Purgatory is not a punishment in the sense of punishment. Purgatory is a place where a soul goes to be purified. So here's the deal. We can look at it as a punishment if we want to. And mostly that was the way that it was taught years and years ago when I was a child. But it's really an outreach of the mercy of God. It's really about a God who loves us so much that he offers us this opportunity for purgation if we die with any stain of sin or any kind of temporal punishment due to sin upon our soul. So purgatory is really a beautiful, beautiful place, though the soul suffers. Now, what causes the suffering? Well, theologians have several different discussions about it. They say it's like a fire, and that's where we get these fiery images of purgatory, and we kind of liken it to hell. But purgatory, the fire of purgatory, is the soul's fire of desire for God. Now, remember this. By the time a soul gets to purgatory, it's already beheld God to a certain extent. Because, it tells us in sacred scripture that it is appointed to man to live once and then die and then the judgment. So when we die, our soul separates from our body and our soul stands before the throne of God. And God lets us know what our eternal fate is. He's either going to say, well done, good and faithful servant, and we're going to waltz on into heaven, or he's going to say, your salvation is assured. We have a little cleaning up to do first, though, and we'll go to purgatory. And heaven forbid, he would look at us and say, oh, you have earned the fiery, fiery depths of hell. So purgatory is really a sign of God's mercy. Think about it this way. In order for us to be able to be with God for all eternity, to experience the union that a soul will have with God in heaven, it is necessary for that soul to be immaculate. There's only one immaculate conception, that's Our Lady. But by the time we get to heaven, whether it's a straight shot or we, do a little flyby even over purgatory, by the time we get to heaven, we're going to be immaculate. There will be no sin. There will be no temporal, residual effect or punishment due to sin. There will be nothing, and we will be able to have union with God to the maximum degree that it is possible for us to have union with Him. And if the soul was not cleaned up, the soul would not be able to contain God. It would be obliterated, because you cannot take something that is pure and pour it into something that is corrupt in any way, shape, or form, because you cannot. Corruption and purity does not coexist. So this is really nothing for you to fear. The idea is it is something for you to acknowledge. And it's something to encourage you to continue to move forward to the extent that you can to uniform yourself with God's will, to live God's will more, to come into uniformity with His will. And He tells us what His will is, Victoria. He tells us that His will is to follow the Ten Commandments and to live the Beatitudes of His Son. That is prescribed for us in sacred Scripture. The law right? Which is the negative expression, and then the Beatitudes, which is the positive expression of God's will for us, that Jesus gives us on the Mount. So we strive to the best of our ability to make good on all of that. So it's an encouragement to lead us in the path of truth, to hold us on that path of truth, and to one day arrive at the fullness of truth, who is our Lord Jesus Christ. The other aspect of purgatory is that just like the sacrament of reconciliation is a healing sacrament, so is purgatory a healing place. It's healing up these breaches that might exist in the interiority of our being and our soul. But it's also to heal us perhaps from some of the wounds that we've experienced in this life that have not been completely healed here. Wounds that have come by way of our own personal decisions, or wounds that have come by people's acts of free will against us. Also, if we harbor any unforgiveness, we cannot enter into the kingdom of God. So if there's someone that we have not yet forgiven in this life and we die, then this is an opportunity for all of that to take place there. So we pray for the holy souls. The holy souls can no longer merit grace for themselves, but our prayers for the holy souls become very efficacious. Many of the mystic saints tell us that our Blessed Mother visits the souls in purgatory. And what a beautiful consolation of spirit that must be. So the Lord does not want you to walk in fear. He wants you to walk in constancy and hope. Constancy of moving forward in union with Him, and hope in not only eternal salvation, but the fullness of joy that He wants you to know.
Thank you. That's very comforting to hear, actually. And that also leads into my second question I had when you were speaking about forgiveness.
Yes.
I have this relationship with my parents that I would deem like toxic, and it's been very challenging. I feel like I've been suffering for a long time, almost my whole life, navigating through my relationship with them, because I feel at times, do the good thing, be Christian, accept them, be welcoming, but then it's hard to have them around when they're constantly, especially now, speaking against like the Catholic faith and being very negative and, constantly hurting feelings of my own and of my husband. So I get lost in what to do and whether to, keep speaking to them and just hearing this negativity, even though I shut it down, it just keeps resurfacing, and it's unending, if that makes sense. And I don't know, just how to deal with it. And I know a lot of people deal with parents that either aren't, Catholic or maybe in this toxic cycle. But for me, I constantly struggle with this, and I say, I forgive them, yet they don't ask for forgiveness. So is that even possible? Maybe you can give me some guidance.
Yes. Let's talk about this for a moment. Jesus tells us that we must forgive. It's a divine and holy mandate. It's not an option. He tells us we have to forgive. And when Peter says 7 times no, Jesus says 70 times 7 times, right? And what is Jesus saying there? Well, he's saying, no, we have to forgive always and no matter the number of times that it's necessary. So here you are, and you're in this relationship. These are your parents. The 4th commandment says to honor your father and your mother. But to honor your father and your mother does not mean that you have to experience abuse by them. It doesn't mean that you have to allow yourself to be belittled by them, or that you allow yourself to suffer at their hands in any way. That's not necessarily equivalent to respect. To respect them means that you desire for them the ultimate good. And what is the ultimate good? The ultimate good is their salvation. You respect them because they are made in the image and likeness of God. Now, oftentimes people do not live up to that reality. right? I mean, don't we see that in our world today? We see heinous actions being committed. We see people doing vile and horrible things. We see a culture that's applauding vile and horrible things. So, people do not necessarily live out the reality of who they have been created to be and in whose image they are made. But I'm going to use a big word here. Metaphysically, the essential nature of the human person is that the human person is made in the image and likeness of God. And we respect the person because they're made in that image, whether they're living out that image or not. So there's that. That's respect. That's honor. That is admitting that this person, even though they sometimes cause us great pain and suffering, are made in the image and likeness of God. And what we want for them is for them to come into not only acknowledgement that they're made in the image and likeness of God, but conformity to the fact that they're made in the image and likeness of God. That being said, we don't necessarily help people to do that if in some way we allow ourselves to be belittled by them, abused by them, in any way, verbally accused by them. That's not helping them. So it becomes very important for us to put boundaries and limitations on that kind of behavior. And that's very difficult, especially for a child to do with regard to parents. But sometimes it's necessary. And it's always necessary if we're truly going to respect the image and likeness in which they were created, or I should say even in whom they were created, right? So, what I would suggest you do with regard to your parents, first of all, you forgive. And remember this, Victoria, forgiveness is not an emotion and it's not a passion. So the fact that maybe you don't even feel forgiveness doesn't mean that you haven't forgiven. Forgiveness is a free will action prompted by grace that sets us free from the consequences of sin. All right? To the extent that you are spoken down to, belittled, ridiculed, whatever is going on there, to that extent, you're being sinned against. So we don't want people to persist in sin, right? But you needing to forgive them frees you from the consequences of the sin. It's a spiritual law. I don't know how it works, but it's the truth. And from experience, I can tell you it's true. But it's necessary nonetheless for their sake, as well as for your sake, to put boundaries there. I would have a discussion with them. Obviously, you want to maintain a relationship with them. I would let them know that, I love you. I love you. And love is a choice too. It's not a passion or an emotion. I love you. You are my parents. I honor you and I respect you. That being said, I also honor and respect myself. I also honor and respect the fact that I too have been created in the image and likeness of God. I want to maintain a relationship, but I cannot and will not permit you to speak to me that way. You have that right. You might want to phrase it differently. They might huff out. You might not have an opportunity for several years, to speak to them again, or maybe never. But you certainly will plant a seed in their minds and in their hearts that help for them to know the truth. Sometimes, what happens is, there's a breach for a period of time, but then that breach gets healed. And a relationship begins anew. And a relationship doesn't begin with all of that kind of toxic business. Nowhere does it say in sacred scripture or in the teachings of the church that we permit ourselves, that it's necessary for us to remain in a truly toxic environment or relationship. And it nowhere says that we allow ourselves to be abused by people. So, I understand that each of these wounds is very serious and very deep. And you can offer all of that suffering on their behalf for the sake of the salvation of their souls, for the sake of them coming to terms with what it is that's actually underneath this. Because typically when people are like that, they're suffering too. There's something under there that's sparking that kind of miserable behavior. Rarely are people purposely horrid. They're reacting to something. But I would have I would definitely sit down and have a serious discussion.
Back and forth where whether to invite them to events or them being a part of things, because just that negativity or, like you said, that suffering, whatever they're feeling, is just casted upon us, I guess, and it'll just make things, or like the event, like stained by their negativity, by all the hurtful things that they may say or act like. And then I want to respect my husband because he's the leader of the household, and when he says we shouldn't invite them to this, it's hard because in my heart I feel like we should invite them and still be open. But then another part of me is, well, it hurts me doing this as well.
Well, of course. And
that's the conflict.
Yeah, and I'm not necessarily. First of all, I would hope that your husband would have a conversation with your parents because he's supposed to protect you. I understand he's the son-in-law. I understand that won't be well received, but that's the fact of the matter. But if you decide to have a conversation with them, he most certainly should be there to have that conversation, to be there for your support and also for his influence in that situation. And I would again, the holidays are always difficult. And these situations exist. Yeah. You're not alone, honey. I can tell you that much. They exist in every family. But I would tell them, I would say, hey, listen, would love to get together for the holidays, love to have you over. But, I just got to tell you, on so many occasions, unfortunately, words have been spoken that have caused, great pain and suffering and have really marred the day. I want you to come, but, I also want for the day to be nice. My guess is they're not going to receive any of it well, Victoria.
Yes.
But you have to make that decision. And is it disrespectful for you not to invite them? I can't say that it's disrespectful. We talked a little bit about what honor and respect is. How you're going to deal with that in the aftermath. I mean, in terms of how you feel interiorly about all of this, and oftentimes we end up feeling very guilty even when we take a right action,
Yes. That's so definitely the outcome every time. I always feel just guilt, lots of guilt. And then they also put guilt on me by saying, hey, we're your parents and, you need to honor us. And even though they're not, I wouldn't even say they're Christian, but they always refer to, honor your mother and father and talk about how they're hurt and versus how they made us feel and never any apologies.
Right.
So
well, I've got a little one-liner for you. When they start doing that, you just simply say, I'm so sorry you feel that way. That's all I would say. Because it's their feeling, but you don't have to accept it. I got to go. I'm sorry, Victoria. I hope that helps you, honey. I certainly do. And for our caller out there on YouTube, if a couple are in a civil marriage and not married in the Catholic Church and both had affairs, is it still mortal sin? Well, first of all, you're living in mortal sin if it's a civil marriage and you're Catholic and the marriage is not blessed in the church. Every affair is a sinful affair by its very nature. You are having sexual relations outside of marriage. It's an easy question to answer. Get to confession, get the marriage blessed, and get on the right road. Well, we're going to have to leave it there for you today. It's been great being with you. I'll be back with you tomorrow. Tomorrow's Wednesday. You know what that means. We're going to have Sue Brinkman with us. It'll be our Wacky Wednesday, so get your questions ready. God bless all of you. Bye-bye.
Another great podcast on EWTN Podcast Central is Restless. It's 4 zany Catholic young adults seeking God in the midst of this crazy mixed-up world. They discuss life, relationships, work, fun, and everything else in our world through the lens of our Catholic faith. You can hear this and other faith-filled podcasts from our friends and affiliates around the world at EWTN Podcast Central. Visit EWTN.com/radio and click on Podcast Central today.
EWTN. Live truth, live Catholic.
Do you feel life is unfair at times? Share your stories next on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie on most of these EWTN stations.
Want to be notified when Women of Grace goes live on Facebook? Follow EWTN Radio's Facebook page and click on the bell icon to be notified.
Mother Angelica had a simple goal when she began EWTN: to reach the world with the gospel message. EWTN radio services transmit 24/7 on over 500 domestic and international AM and FM radio affiliates, satellite radio, and web streaming. We've never wavered from our mandate to proclaim the truth and majesty of the Catholic faith. Thank you for joining EWTN in this mission.
Proclaiming the faith, changing lives.
The year was 1983. Mother Angelica Live debuts on EWTN's second anniversary. Thanks to her rising profile, the guest roster for the shows includes Pat Boone, Chuck Colson, Betty Hutton, and others.
To learn more about Mother Angelica's life and the history of EWTN, visit EWTN.com/Mother Angelica.
This is a Did You Know moment with Sandra McDevitt. Did you know America's name is connected to a Hungarian saint? The origin of the name America came from the Italian explorer Amerigo Vespucci. Amerigo bore a saint's name. That saint was the son of Saint Stephen, King of Hungary. His name was Emmerich. This name quickly became a popular name in Europe upon his canonization, a short 52 years after his death. He was mentored by St. Gilbert, who was reluctantly sent to newly Christianized Hungary. Through him, St. Emmerich developed a devotion to the Blessed Mother. A vision showed him virginity in soul and body is pleasing to God, so upon marrying a Polish princess, with their souls united, they lived as brother and sister. Heir to the throne, he died at age 22, becoming the model for Hungarian youth and those in Europe. I'm Sandra McDevitt for EWTN Radio.
There's all kinds of prayers. There's all kinds of ways of praying. There's all kinds of methods of praying. There's a Salesian method, and Francis de Sales and Ignatius of Loyola. There's Franciscan methods and Dominican methods, and you name it, we got it. But sometimes we depend on a method too much. St. Teresa said that prayer was conversation with God. Do you have a hard time conversing with people? No, I don't have a hard time. Well, that's how it is with God.